When I was in high school, I did stand-up comedy in front of crowds of over 500 people. I parroted my favorite comedians before coming up with my own material, and people loved it. Once I was done with my education and college, I knew I wanted to be a storyteller. Being an entertainer was thrilling, and I knew I wanted to do it more. Using that time and talent, I decided to go for D&D stories.
Hello and welcome to another D&D Stories. I am your host, TheWriter, and this is the show where we sit here and I regale you with all the times of tabletop games and remember when something cool happened. So, if you recall, last time we pretty much failed and the world was brought to its knees by the evil forces of the Yuan-Ti as our heroes were cut down by sheer numbers. And that campaign came to a close, and everybody went away mad or upset, and that was the end of that. That campaign crashed and burned. Our heroes failed. The world was doomed. Ouroboros was to be brought to bear to eat the world and poop out a better one for the Yuan-Ti, and there was nothing we could really do about it. So that group of friends kind of scattered for a bit as we were kind of like licking our wounds, all for various different reasons. And we were all part of a group called the Gamers Guild. And the Gamers Guild was a club at my college, Western Kentucky University, that composed of maybe 60, 80 people, a bunch of which played Magic the Gathering or tabletop games, or we had a big stack of board games, etc., etc., etc. But among them were many, many D&D veterans, and I went to talk with one of them in particular. His name was Robert. And I said, Robert, this campaign ended like this, and it was terrible, and I basically went to him for advice. So I was like, this is a new DM. I taught this guy to play D&D, and this is what he came up with. It was really awful, and we really can't use this setting anymore because the world's coming to an end, and I can't really think of anything to salvage it because once the world ends, and then you have to move on to something else, or you have to move on. You have to move back in time, and that can mess with your continuity if you play with the same people over a number of years. So I said, Robert, I need your help. Can you salvage this? Is there anything we can do? Given this set of circumstances, is there anything we can do to fight Ouroboros other than like rolling level 30 characters or rolling gods and going to stop them ourselves, which is lame and not that challenging? Something narratively speaking that we could do about this. And he said, let me think on it. Months go by. I'm not kidding. 2-3 months go by. School ends. People go home for the summer. And Robert comes back to me one day and he says, I think, after busy life, life comes first, but I've been thinking about that D&D campaign you were talking about, Shadow of the Northern Plains, and I've come up with a follow-up campaign for you. Are you interested? And I said, yes, of course. And I go, but, nobody that was there for Shadow of the Northern Plains is here right now. They're all, this is college. We've scattered to the four winds for the summer months. And he goes, well, why don't you come and I'll bring in some of my friends and, I'll tell them everything that's happened and you type up a summary or something of the events that have transpired. And then I will run a campaign that starts, X amount of time after Shadow of the Northern Plains went on. And I go, okay, but I'll be the only one who was there, I guess. He said, well, no, Parlesia got cut down with the rest of them, so you'd be playing a new person just within the same timeline. And I said, all right, I can definitely do that. Is there anything I ought to know or change about it? He said, well, your world is coming to an end, so you're going to have to go to hell and back to have any chance of surviving, much less saving the world. So it's going to be, rough stuff to try and make this happen. What I didn't know at the time was that he was being literal, as that we would be going to hell and back to save the world of the shadow of the northern plains. We didn't name the planet or anything, so we just called it that. And gosh, I given the day and age we're in, I guess I have to give like a warning right here. If you consider yourself greatly religious, if you need a safe space in a coloring book, or if you have a little sister or parents that aren't so sure about D&D, wear some headphones or go away or whatever you like, because the content of this campaign was really rough and heavy, and like I actually didn't want to tell this story for a very, very long time, because it gets gritty, it gets really dark and uncomfortable, and etc., etc. And just like the concept of hell itself in D&D, like in the 70s, parents were worried about kids becoming satanic through this board game, D&D, and stuff. And they had some right to worry, because in D&D, I think Forgotten Realms, we have maps of hell. You can go to hell. It's a place. If you've got the right portal, if you've got the right gateway, or dimension door, or whatever you want to call that, you can go to hell. Hell is not an idea. It's mapped on the astral wheel, or whatever you call it. I don't have a ton of knowledge about Forgotten Realms, but I know it's one of the outer planes. It's a physical location, and a lot of people are really sensitive when it comes to the idea of hell. Like, some of them see it as poetic justice, like Dante, or other people think of it as a metaphor that, there's no such thing as an infinite punishment for a finite crime. There's other people that, don't believe in hell at all. Like, there's nothing you could possibly do to deserve damnation and fire and pain for the rest of eternity. And they find the idea of hell laughable. It's almost like, it's like the alignment argument. Everybody has a different idea about what hell is. And just personally, I think the best rendition of hell that I ever saw was in the Robin Williams movie, What Dreams May Come, which is sad to bring up after his death. But that movie basically said that hell is the idea of, it's not all fire and pain. Hell is just your life gone wrong. So it's a heavy topic. It is, especially for something like my show here, D&D Stories. But kind of strap in. I'll be watching the comment sections. Everybody try to be civil with each other. Like I said, if you're super religious and you're going to get offended by this, turn back now. This isn't for you. Wear some headphones. There's going to be content here. So not so much spicy as it is sacrilegious. So hope you got some thick skin for this one, because it's not going to be fun. Like I said, I really hesitated to tell this story, so get ready. So we gathered up 4 heroes, as is tradition, and we were all, mid-level range, like between 10 and 12 when we started. We ended up with a sorceress, a fighter, a monk, and a rogue. So 2 guys and 2 girls, which was nice. Because the Ouroboros, the world eater, was awakening, the gods abandoned the shadow of the kingdom of the shadow of the northern plains. So no paladins, no clerics. So healing potions are definitely in demand, and the price went up. Now, why is this? Why didn't the gods come and stop Ouroboros? Because it took the entire pantheon to seal Ouroboros at the center of the world. So if he breaks free, the first thing he's going to want to do is eat any god that comes in front of him, and they're all set in their own petty squabbles anyway. And there is no Spoonie to save us because he's a level 0 god and would stand no chance. So the World Eater would become a God Eater, and if it digested a god, it would get worse. So the gods flee from our world. There is no longer any such thing as holy magic. So suddenly all the clerics working in all the hospitals can't help people. The paladins lighting the way in dungeons, they got to carry torches now. There's no such thing as healing magic. There's no such thing as smite per day. It's all gone. There's no holy magic. This world is darkening and dying and coming to an end. So, gods have abandoned us. Abandon all hope, ye who enter. And it's been, like timeline-wise, it's been 5 years since the Ouroboros started to stir. And wars have gone on. The fall of mankind has already happened. The Yuan-Ti have rushed over the kingdoms of men, elves, and dwarves just on sheer numbers. They've come up out of the sea, out of swamps, up out of the sewers. Somebody waved, the red flag, and suddenly there was just chaos and anarchy every which way. Villages were burning, cities were toppling, oceans and seas boiling, cats and dogs living together, mass hysteria. And it basically becomes Judgment Day for everybody except for the Yuan-Ti. Like, the world is brought to its knees because they have populated themselves so far, in secret, underground, waiting for this day to come, and now it has. So it is, the age of man is over, and the elves and the dwarves are brought almost to extinction, and the Yuan-Ti are the ones walking freely across the land now. So they're waiting for the world to end entirely, but in the meantime, they're burning, raping, and pillaging as they please, because, their time has come. The world has turned, and the next era of the planet has started, the era of the Yuan-Ti. And when the Ouroboros, however long it takes, I guess, for when the Ouroboros completely awakens, it will burst from the planet like an egg almost, eat whatever's left of the world, and then it wasn't really clear. Like I said, it was going to digest it and poop out a better planet and drop all the Yuan-Ti on it. I'm not really sure how that worked, if it was soul magic or god magic or whatever. Rather Lovecraftian, if you think about it. It's going to rip the souls out of all the Yuan-Ti and then drop them back on the planet once the planet's been reformed. But, the end of the world could come any day now. We just don't know when. But it's been 5 years of burning, raping, pillaging, and pretty much all the world powers are gone. So the kobold are gone, the goblins are gone, mankind is hiding. The dwarves are holed up in their mountains, what's left of them. The elves are practically extinct. This is it. The age of ash and scales has come. So even the dragons are becoming somewhat scarce. And we gather these 4 heroes have come left with an order of people that used to be paladins. And we go to this place in one of the Dwarven Mountains, and, we do the secret knock, and they let us in through the stone wall that, it doesn't look like an entrance because it's hidden. And they let us all in, and they say, the Ouroboros could break out any day now. We have no plan. What do we do? We can't dimension door, or we can't hop dimensions. We have no idea where we would end up. And, we can't take everybody with us, because as soon as we say, hey, everybody come through this doorway to the new land, well, the Yuan-Ti will descend on us. So it's even if we gathered up hundreds of people, the rest of civilization will fall. So we have to, we have to make our stand, fall back no further, or, we face oblivion. And like I said, amongst our heroes is a sorceress, a fighter, a rogue, and a monk. And I'm playing as the rogue because we were promised a little bit of dungeon delving. So I was like, okay, I'll be the guy that picks locks. So our sorceress ended up being like a damage dealer, like straight up like fireball and lightning bolt and stuff like that. She was a relatively new player, but she had a lot of fire in her blood. She was all about dealing elemental damage. The fighter was a sword and board, so he was going to serve as our tank, I guess. And our monk, she was all about like special techniques, like grappling, punching somebody, and then like 5 hours later their head would explode. And she delved into all these weird feats I'd never seen before, the quivering palm techniques and the magic ceiling punch to where they couldn't cast spells on you anymore, things like that. And we gather in this secret place with this council of dwarves and this council of former paladins. You remember, holy magic doesn't work anymore. And we go, we've basically come together to try and come up with a plan. And one of the paladins finally steps forward after we converse and we introduce ourselves, and we sit around this big table and in these, almost like an Athenian sort of democracy circle. I forget what they're called, the council or whatever. There's like 40 people here. And finally, one of the paladins steps forward. He calls for silence and says, the gods have abandoned us, and our world stands on the edge of oblivion. Our holy powers don't work anymore. There is no place deep enough in the earth for us to hide. The Yuan-Ti have won. He goes, there is only one other place that we might turn for powers great enough to stop the doomsday that is upon us. And we go, what is that? And he goes, we must turn from the gods who abandon us to the forces of darkness who remain. And we go, what? And he goes, yes, there is one who might be able to help us, but at great cost. And he pulls out this big ancient scroll. It's like 3 feet wide. He's got a squire just to carry it. It's a big, giant scroll. 3 feet wide, 7 feet long. And he brings it up to the conference table, and they gently unroll it, and they put stones on the corners. And we look over it, and it's a diagram of an ancient 3-sided castle. So 3 towers, 3 walls. And, the middle is this twisted maze of rooms and balconies and drawbridges and chains and things. And at its center is a seal, a great plate of enchanted metal. And he goes, beneath this seal, a mile under the ground, is something I think could stop the Ouroboros. Something equally hungry, equally as powerful, and sealed under the earth thousands of years ago by men and dwarves and elves. Their combined might was barely enough to stop it. And that was another doomsday that happened long ago, in which we emerged victorious, but now another hungry beast comes, and we don't have another hole to throw him in. So, if we unleash what we've sealed beneath the earth onto the Ouroboros, they can fight and kill each other, or one will kill the other and will be injured enough that it might leave, or we might be strong enough to actually kill the victor. And we go, what is it? What is sealed down there under that castle and that giant, mile-wide iron plate? And he goes, it's a Tarisk. And we go, a Tarisk? And, Terra meaning earth. And basically, if you don't know what a Tarisk is, it's basically Godzilla. It's an earth dragon that it heals so quickly, it's so hungry, it does so much damage to everything that even comes near it. It's basically like a god. You need a wish ring and level 20 characters or a dimension door to get rid of it. It doesn't need to breathe, it doesn't need to eat. It's just hunger and fury and teeth and horns. It's a kaiju, if you want to call it that. but it's the kaiju of all kaijus because you can't kill it. It regenerates health so quickly that its muscles are so firm that it like presses wounds closed, and it can eat 20th level characters for breakfast and stomp dragons and destroy demigods and stuff like that. It's the ultimate creature from Dungeons and Dragons. Screw dragons. Never mind some of the lesser gods. Tarrasques are like the top of the food chain. When they get up, when they emerge from their hibernation, if you want to live, you get out of the way. You run to the next continent. And, once X amount of time has gone by and they've eaten everything they want to eat, they go back to sleep for another, 1,000 years or whatever. And then you'll be safe. And the people 1,000 years from now can worry about it. Well, they managed to catch this Tarrasque and seal it away. We go, well, what made it so special that they sealed it instead of just letting it go to sleep again? And he said, well, this Tarrasque was a hybrid. We go, a hybrid? And he goes, what could possibly, there's only supposed to be one Tarrasque ever. Like on any individual planet, on any individual plane of existence, there's only supposed to be one Tarrasque. And we go, how is it a hybrid? There's no breeding program here. And he goes, according to the ancient texts, the original Tarrasque was thrown into the sun by a great group of either demigods or high, epic legendary heroes. It was thrown into the sky and into the sun where it burned and was no more. Because you can't regenerate if you're steeped in, the fires of the sun. So what we didn't know for a long time was that before it was hunted down and killed, this Tarrasque raped a dragon. A very large, very powerful dragon. And then there was an egg, and then there was a Tarrasque dragon hybrid. It has wings. And we go, that's worse. That's worse than a Tarrasque. Was it a black dragon? Does it spit acid? How much worse could it possibly be? A Tarrasque with wings. Fuck you. And basically, what he's getting at is if we release the Tarrasque as the Ouroboros is arriving, that, there's only one meatball and there's two dogs. So they'll fight over it, and hopefully one of them will die, and then whoever's left will be injured enough that we can kill outright. So if you know your D&D, gods are statted. They can be killed, so Ouroboros has stats. The Tarrasque, however freaking possible it might be, has stats. It can be killed or sent to another dimension or apparently thrown into the sun. But he's basically saying, let them fight, So our only hope is to unleash one world eater onto another world eater and hope they don't feel like sharing. So it's like, this is about the best plan we can come up with, because no force of men, dwarves, or elves is going to overtake the Yuan-Ti, and no spell that we've got left is powerful enough to put the Ouroboros back to sleep. So it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And we go, so what? You want us to go to this castle and tug the manhole off of his hole and, throw rocks at him until he wakes up? How is this going to work? And he goes, no, it's far superior to just a cage. Otherwise, the Tarrasque would just burrow out. An invocation of the gods was brought down to stop the Tarrasque once and for all and to seal him away, rather than let him wake up 1,000 year after 1,000 year and setting the world back a couple of 100 years every time he went on an eating spree. So, the Tarrasque's body is under this castle. And he's reading from this page of lore. Apparently it was very carefully documented, and you don't really blame him for doing so. And of course, paladins would have this knowledge. Because the Tarrasque's body is under this castle. The Tarrasque's soul, or spirit, or whatever you want to call it, is in heaven, or some like caged portion of heaven. The lock to this cage is in purgatory, and the key to this cage is in hell. And we go, what? We're going to have to go to hell, purgatory, and heaven to unleash this beast. Like, it was sealed so thoroughly. And he goes, yeah, basically. He goes, we don't have the magic to do that. We don't have holy magic to go to heaven. And much like hell, heaven is a place. You can go there in Forgotten Realms and Harp. We have actual maps of God's kingdom, or whatever you want to call them. There's so many pantheons of gods in D&D. It's kind of hard to just call heaven heaven. It could be Mount Olympus. It could be any number of places. Could be the grand halls of the Vikings, for all we know. It's in an afterlife domain. But the lock is in purgatory. The key is in hell. The body's on earth. How are we going to do this? And he goes, we don't have the paladin magic to send someone to heaven without killing them. And even then, you would never get back because it's against the natural order of things. And we don't have resurrection magic to bring them back anyway. So how would we possibly make this work? He's like, well, the only thing we can really do is start at the bottom and work our way up. Because, God's willing, even though they abandoned us, if we get the other three parts secured, we'll figure out a way to get into heaven and find the spirit of the Tarek to put back in its body. And we go, God, this is sacrilegious on a number of levels. And we go, okay. So what? We have to go to hell first? We don't have magic to get into heaven. How are we going to get into hell? And we go, well, we don't have the magic to open a portal, so we're going to need to summon a denizen of hell and basically ask permission. And we go, we're going to summon a demon and hope he's in a good enough mood to let us into hell so we can look for a key, and God knows where it is or what it looks like. This whole plan stands on the edge of a knife, and this is the best we've got. He goes, yeah, basically. And, we confer with the sorceress. You don't have any spells that open hell mouths, do you? And she goes, no. And, we got nothing. It's like, we don't have any better ideas, but this is as bad as it gets. We're going to invoke a demon or an archfiend or something to find a key that's hidden in hell. And we go, okay, I got no better ideas to save the world, and the gods aren't helping us, so maybe we can find help in hell. So, again, we kind of confer amongst ourselves. It was like, we don't really know any demons. And the DM looks across at me and goes, well, you kind of do. And I go, what do you mean? He goes, well, there's one demon from this particular realm that has already been to Earth and back in the past 5 or 10 years. And I go, oh no. And he goes, oh yes. It's like, it's not this character that knows. It wasn't Parlesia. It was Spoony that knew of a demon. The Wicked Master. Robert wanted us to go find the 5 pieces of the Wicked Master and bring him back again on purpose. And we go, that's like a whole campaign in and of itself. That's like gathering the Dragon Balls and summoning the Eternal Dragon. It's like the 5 pieces of the Archfiend. And the thing is, they've already got 4 of the pieces. Because, if you recall, Dylan the Paladin made off with the demon's claw, but the tooth, the bone, the hoof, and the horn were never fully recovered, so they never left the city. Dylan left the city eventually, being an older paladin, with the claw in hand, but the other 4 pieces never left the city, so somebody gathered them up, hoping to summon the demon again, and could never find the 5th piece. So the 4 pieces of the Archfiend were passed down through these various factions, and over time ended up in the hands of these ex-paladins. And he goes, he's got the 4 silver canisters that are like sealed with wax with Taoist symbols on them, and spells and sigils and stuff. And he sets these 4 big silver canisters down and says, these are the pieces of the Archfiend, the Wicked Master. If we can recover the last piece of it, we may summon him and bargain for the key we seek. And go, we are literally making deals with devils. Wow. And we go, Dylan the Paladin, we know nothing of where he went afterwards. He could be anywhere. He could be dead for all we know. It's been 10 years since this archdemon was summoned way back during the Wicked Master campaign. So it was like Wicked Master and then Shadow of the Northern Plains. Now we called it the Ouroboros contract because of this demon. And I go, we've got to track down Dylan or wherever his resting place is. And he's like, well, demonic magic is not hard to trace, and you do have a sorceress with you. So, detect magic, maximize spell, any number of instruments and things that can help you will help you narrow it down. So this meeting goes on and on about trying to narrow down where Dylan the Paladin must have gone afterwards. It's like, well, from this city, where are like the major churches and cathedrals? And we name like 4 places. And he goes, well, Dylan was all about smiting evil and being a demon slayer and stuff like that. Out of those 4 churches and cathedrals, which one was the most militaristic, where they trained like the hardcore paladins? And he goes, well, that was this one. And so we go, and I don't remember if Dylan was like a paladin of Paylor or something. He picked like a sun god. Just because he wasn't real deep on his character lore. He just wanted to be able to do the most damage to evil things. So we'll just call it, a Paylorian cathedral. And if you remember how Shadow of the Northern Plains started out, get ready to be really insulted, Christians. And we go, okay, if we travel by night, we might be able to make it there and not get noticed by the Yuan-Ti. Because by then, the Yuan-Ti have taken over the rivers, they've taken over the farms. This is their world now. So we have to travel by night like highwaymen. We don't even bother with horses. Like, we've got to stealth our way across the landscape to get there. And the DM goes, okay, roll your travel check whenever you're ready. So we make plans, we buy potions, we sharpen our weapons. This isn't going to be easy because wherever Dylan has gone, he's probably spent a lot of time killing Yuan-Ti, and if he got cut down, he probably got looted, and whoever's got his stuff doesn't know what they have. So we spend a long time going from A to B, ducking Yuan-Ti, trying to get across treacherous rivers, going through dark forests, keeping our cloaks tight about ourselves. We even got like special shoes that had talons on the front of them, carved off of dead Yuan-Ti. So the tracks we left looked like we had taloned feet. So if anybody saw our footprints, they would say, oh, that was just Yuan-Ti, so they don't worry about it. So it's almost like Judgment Day and Terminator, except instead of robots, it's Yuan-Ti. So we have to duck from one cave to the next outcropping to the next thicket. We're tired of hiding in holes and skulking in darkness. So we arrive. It used to be a city almost. It had this great big Paylorian cathedral, and there's a small town around it. And they've got embattlements with sharpened sticks pointing outward in case somebody should attack. They've got a big, thick gate. And, it's the middle of the night when we arrive, and they've got torches and guards, every X number of feet. It's like, how are we actually going to get in there? It's like, well, the Paylorian Cathedral has a waterway, so we can sneak in that way. And Do we have a map of this place? No. We've basically got to wander into the darkness with our torches and hope we don't run into anybody. Because if one person raises the alarm, that's it. Because the whole place is filled with Yuan-Ti. In fact, probably the only reason the Pelorian Cathedral hasn't been burned to the ground yet is because it's a strong stone structure. So all the windows have been knocked out, all the nice stained glass windows, all the pews have been thrown out. Any holy artifact made of something precious has been melted down into gold bars, silver bars. The incense has been thrown in the trash. The holy books have been burned. It's a shell of what it once was. It's how are we going to find Dylan in all this? It's we don't have clairvoyance. We don't have a ranger to track him or an animal that knows his scent. He could be anywhere. And it's well, if he died in the past 5 years, then he would be buried in the Undercroft. If he's still alive, well, God knows. So we'll have to check the Undercroft first, because they would bury legendary honorable paladins in these big stone sarcophaguses under the cathedral, away from the wine cellars and herb cellars, away from anywhere they might have kept prisoners, because Pelorian cathedrals can act like military bases. They basically got a crypt, so we're going to go peek at the crypt first. And it has an outcropping to one side where we can get in, because, if you've got a coffin, you don't want to walk it through the chapel and through past all the people praying and stuff. So they've got a tunnel of the dead to bring in bodies and coffins to put them to rest without a whole bunch of hubbub if they don't want to. So we find this side door after we wander through the waterways for a while, and we kind of lean out of one of the drainage pipes, and we see, yeah, there it is. And there's nobody guarding it because it's off to one side. It leads to the tunnel of the dead, where there's no lights and nothing useful down there. And our fighter goes, okay, I'll lead the way. Everybody be super, super quiet. And we roll stealth. And we start sneaking in. And as soon as we open the door and head inside a few feet, we run into Yuan-Ti. Because the Yuan-Ti are wandering around with crowbars, crowbarring open all of the coffins, looking for loot. And it goes, intruders! And we go, get them! And of course our sorceress steps up right away, fireball! And fireball in an enclosed space is never a good idea, because fireballs explode. So everybody present takes X number of fire damage. We're all blown off our feet. And we go, don't do that in small tunnels. Don't do that in small tunnels. And I throw a smoke pellet down to ninja vanish, and throw down all the smoke pellets and charge in after our foes while they can't see us. And I make the backstab, brah, and toss them to one side. Make another backstab, toss them to one side. The monk comes flying in, punches one of them in the sternum. He's like, ah, and his head explodes and he falls to one side. And the fighter crosses swords with the ones that are left, and we fight back and forth. There's only 8 of them down here, but there's only 4 of us, so we struggle for a while. At the same time, trying not to make any noise. And trying not to step on any of the torches that got dropped. I think I ran across the same damn torch twice, and took 2 or 3 fire damage from just standing on it, trying to position myself for backstabs and things. But we kill them without too much trouble. And, it finally goes silent, and we stand really still. It's did anybody hear that? Are there more coming? And we wait in silence for, a long 30 seconds, and it's nobody else is coming. Okay, phew. And we go, well, they've got, we take their crowbar, and we go and we see if Dylan the Paladin is buried here. Because if he is, I'm willing to bet he's got the Demon's Claw on him. Because I think at the end of Wicked Master, he made it into a necklace or something. But if Dylan were the guardian of a piece of an archdemon or an archfiend, I'm pretty sure he'd be buried with it. And sure enough, yes, we find Dylan dead and buried with his demon slaying sword and his super shield and his really strong helmet. He got buried with all of his effects, which our fighter takes because, hey, the gods are gone. He's not going to get punished for this. We have no respect for the dead. We basically have to pick up poor Dylan, well, what's left of him. He's a skeleton by then. He's been dead for some time, it seems. When the Yuan-Ti broke out, apparently he was on the front lines and was among some of the first to get overwhelmed by their sheer numbers. So we learned the fate of Dylan the Paladin. But his body was recovered and buried here, so it was before the world got completely rolled over by Yuan-Ti. So he got thrown onto a death cart and identified and buried with honor. So we take his sword and his shield and his stuff, and sure enough, around his neck we find the demon's claw. And we go, wow, this is what happened to one of the greatest paladins we ever did meet, the slayer of this archfiend, or this archdemon. From whence you came, you shall remain until you are complete again. History echoes back over us as we take this thing into our possession. And our sorceress kind of puts it around her neck, in case we get jumped or captured or whatever. They'll just think it's a necklace from a shark or something with big teeth that she just happens to have. They won't think it's special. And we go, okay, we've got to sneak out. And the fighter goes, should we pop open any of the other sarcophagi? Wouldn't these paladins want us to have their stuff for, smiting demons and things? If we're going to hell, shouldn't we take some of these holy artifacts? Because we can't cast holy spells. And we sit and we think for a minute. It's well, the world is going to shit and the gods aren't here to wag their fingers at us. I'm sure these paladins would want us to have their stuff. So we ended up with a holy dagger and a silver rapier and, like I said, all of Dylan's stuff, which was rare and exotic, powerful stuff. A couple of helmets. Our monk ends up with silver, not brass knuckles, but silver knuckles. And silver is really strong against demons and devils, especially the powerful spellcasters. We find mithril chainmail. We find all kinds of stuff. The fighter gets decked out right away because most paladins are wearing medium or heavy armor. Not so much our sorceress or our rogue or our monk. So I think we found a belt of strength for the monk. Everybody buried here had magic items on them. So we find quite a few things just kind of raiding their sarcophagi. It's this is sacrilegious, but the gods are gone, so I guess religion really doesn't exist anymore, does it? So we kind of loot the place as quietly as we can and turn around to leave. And we sneak out the way we came in through the side door that's out on the side of a hill, and we lean around and we peek to make sure no Yuan-Ti saw us coming in or waiting for us when we come out. Sure enough, we make it out safe, and we've got the demon's claw around our sorceress's neck, and we journey once again across the landscape, across raging river, dark forest, and past caves, using cover as best we can. Again, traveling only at night because all the guard patrols and bandits have been replaced with powerful Yuan-Ti who would just as easily kill the men and rape the women and take them into slavery. So we don't want to be seen, especially by large groups. So we skulk from one hiding spot to the next for several days before we return to the Dwarven Mountain and the secret entrance where we can be let in. And we do the special knock and they let us in. And we go, we have returned. We have the demon's claw. And they go, good, then we can go forward with this. And he goes, God's willing, God's remaining, forgive us for what we're doing because we have no weapons left to fight them with and no numbers to stay the tide. And so they start popping open the canisters, psh, like sodas almost. They hiss because they were airtight sealed, and like the smoke comes up out of them, and the pieces like slowly rise up, being held in place by tiny little platinum spikes, so they don't go anywhere. So bone, hoof, horn, tooth. I was like, oh, my old guitar pick. Shh, you're not Spoony anymore. Damn it. Where did Spoony go? Did he leave with the other gods? Yes. He's not allowed to interfere, remember? He said that during Shadow of the Northern Plains. Right. Okay. So it doesn't do much good to worship gods that aren't there. So we've got the 5 pieces, and we've got the ritual like on a scroll. I thought we destroyed all those, or that we destroyed Edmund's work and we destroyed Jameson's work. Well, apparently Jameson had allies, or he kept copies elsewhere or something, because they still had all of Jameson's notes when it came to summoning this demon. So we had like the raw sulfur and silver and death caps and all the things that needed to be mixed together. And they were drawing lines with lamb's blood, just like really unholy stuff. Like this, there's no marks about it. We were summoning a demon to try and save the world. So, everybody at the table is becoming like visibly uncomfortable while our DM is describing the scenes. Like it's the big pentagram and with candles and period blood and freaking black ink and sulfur, and they slaughtered a goat, and they did all the classic things you would expect. Just this dark ritual. These guys used to be paladins, so some of them are like visibly sick doing this. And the dwarves are putting down mercury, salt, sulfur, all the elements you have to put around the I don't know how you summon a demon. Don't look at me like that. But it's very complicated apparently, because it took a long time. And the 4 of us kind of stand there, or we stand to one side because we know this is about to get rough. And because we're going to summon the Wicked Master, an archdemon, back into our world on purpose. And 10 years ago we killed him right after we summoned him, so his body and his soul went right back to hell. Now we're summoning him again to bargain with him. So the irony is lost on the other 3 people because they weren't there, but not on me because I was there. So 10 years later with a different character, I'm still feeling the irony. So the time comes at last, and they strike the match, and they drop it into the wok, and it ignites and sends magnesium sparks in all directions, and the candles instantly melt all the way down, and like the portal to fucking hell opens on the wall of stone. And who steps through? 10 feet tall, red as a cherry, black horns, yellow teeth, big horns, just like I remembered him, the Wicked Master. And we never got a real name out of him because, to know a demon's name is to control it. So the Wicked Master steps through upon his summoning. Who dares summon the Wicked Master to the mortal coil once more? And he looks around. There's a group of ashen-faced dwarves to one side. There's a group of ex-paladins to one side. There's 4 assholes armed to the teeth right in front of him. And he folds his arms. He's caught in the circle. It's a devil's trap. So he can't leave the circle unless it's broken, or unless we banish him, or unless he goes back through the portal. So he can't do much more than stand in the doorway, unless somebody fucks up and sneezes on the magic circle. Then he would just kill everyone. But who dares summon me? And we summon you to bargain. Dormammu, I've come to bargain. No. Wicked Master, we've come to bargain. He goes, what do you want? And we go, we need the key to the flying Tarisk's cage. And he stares at us like almost dumbfounded. Like this demon, like out of all the things to ask for, we asked for the key to the flying Tarisk's like seal. And he goes, why would you be so foolish as to unleash that world-ending destroyer onto yourselves? And we go, another world eater is upon us. The Ouroboros will be waking and freeing itself from the planet soon. And he goes, ha 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 ha. You know, your world will end either way. And we tell him briefly what we plan to do. If we release the Tarisk onto the Ouroboros and they fight, one of them will hopefully die, and we can kill the other one outright. And he goes, your plan is thin as parchment. It's better than no plan at all. We have nothing else. And he goes, why should I help you? If this world ends, then, you know, X number of souls will go to hell and all the more to torment. We go, yes. If our world suddenly exploded like Krypton, then, you know, whatever evil people are left in the world would immediately go to hell, and you'd have a lot of new toys. And he kind of smiles, the big, nasty demon smile. And we go, but if everybody died, that would be it. There would be, you know, after that big group of people arrived, there would be no more. So you would eventually grow bored with your new toys, and you would have no more coming, at least not from our world. So if you help us save the world by giving us this key and letting us go through with our plans, well, mankind and dwarfkind and elvenkind will continue to breed, and some of us will be evil and some of us will go to hell. And it might be at a trickle's pace, but it's at a trickle's pace that will keep going. And over time, there will, you know, play the long game, Mr. Wicked Master. You can get a whole bunch right now, or you can get an infinite amount over time. And he kind of puts his chin in thumb and forefinger like he's thinking. He's thinking about it because he knows we're right. And he goes, the Tarisk key can only be reached by demon and human hand at the same time. One of you will have to come to hell with me. And looks kind of go around the table like who's going to volunteer, because we know it's not going to be the dwarves and it's not going to be the paladins. One of us has to go to hell. And the DM rolls on the d4 to see if the demon will pick somebody. And he points at our sorceress and goes, you. I see the fire that flows through your veins. You know, he can smell the sulfur and the fireball spells on her hands, because that's what she did earlier. You know, the fires of hell already flow through your veins, you know, sorceress. You might have demon blood in you already, you know, because when you're a sorcerer, you have to pick a bloodline, whether it be draconic, demonic, infernal, elemental. The magic that you can cast comes from somewhere, so she might have had an infernal bloodline, I don't remember. But he smells the sulfur on this woman and picks her. And our sorceress goes, you know, what? Me? And he goes, yes. And he goes, 5 minutes in hell to save the world. And he reaches to one side and kind of snaps his fingers, and this contract rolls out. And we go, oh God, he's actually going to do this. It's an actual contract. And he goes, sign here. And she goes, why should I sign anything you say? He goes, because if you don't make a deal with me, well, there's no guarantee that you'll come back. So here's the deal. You will come with me into hell, do as I say. For the next, say 5 minutes. We'll teleport straight there. And in return, you use this key, you save the world, and ensure the fact that the filthier souls of your races continue to come to hell. And we kind of look at each other and we go, can't we all just go? And he goes, nope. This is my realm. You'll follow my rules if you want to save your pitiful world. It's hard to tell who's got the ball in whose court, because, you know, he could never have any more souls coming to hell if the world ends, but if we don't play his game, then we can't save the world anyway, and we all die, and he knows it. So we're kind of fighting over the football at this point. And the sorceress goes, fine, and she looks over and goes, how much trouble can I get into in 5 minutes in hell? For all we know, I just have to cut my palm, and he has to cut his palm, and it takes like the blood of a demon and the blood of a human to open this seal to get this key. For all we know, it could just be like a small dungeon, and demons can't go near it without a human presence. And the demon kind of folds his arms and just lets her do her conjecture for a while. And finally she agrees, and everybody looks over as like, you're not coming out of this unscathed, right? You're going to hell, and none of us can protect you. There's no holy magic. There's no nothing. You could get jumped by countless demons. You could get filleted alive. You could get caught in the lake of fire, or God knows what's down there. And the demon goes, don't worry. I'll make sure you come back to earth with your key. It's written in this contract. And again, the contract is like 3 feet long. And she should have sat and read it, but she skimmed through it for a while to basically make sure she would go there, get the key, and come back alive. But as a famous talking parrot once said, you'd be surprised what you can live through. So this is where everything got nasty on us. And if you recall, I told you that Robert had a really bad reputation for being a harsh DM, and I handed him an end-of-the-world scenario in which we'd be making deals with demons and one person would go to hell to get this key. Oh, he took full advantage of that. And what happened next was probably the most awful thing I think I've ever seen in any medium of storytelling, whether it be books, movies, D&D, whatever you might say. So again, put on your big boy pants, because our sorceress went to hell to get this key, and she suffered for it, and she suffered hard. And basically, the demon offers his hand to take you through this portal, and so long as you're touching him, you can't be burned by hellfire. He basically gives you like an infinite fire shield, so you don't you don't step in and immediately burst into ash. So he's casting like buff spells on you. And he goes, come along, sorceress. We've a journey ahead. And he pulls her through the portal into hell. And we go, start the timer. And we've got like an hourglass from one of the dwarves, and we turn it over. It's like for making cakes or something. 5 minutes, go. And we basically sit there cross-legged with our hands, with our chins on our fists, staring at this burning portal. What we didn't know was that time on Earth and time in hell are not the same. And we should have thought of this, because in just about every medium I've ever seen, time passes faster in hell than it does on Earth. So whether it be, Constantine, or Supernatural, or any show, any movie, any book, time passes faster in hell than it does on Earth. So we're moving in slow motion while the Wicked Master and our sorceress are racing through hell at the speed of sound. So 5 minutes on Earth is 5 days in hell. And what our DM described was terrible. Basically, he said, the demon takes you through to hell, sorceress, and it is there that he throws you upon a rock and basically laughs his ass off at you. After you've signed his contract and he signed that, he's like, you didn't read all the bylines. So all he has to do is make sure you leave hell within the next 5 days with the key in hand, and he can do pretty much whatever he wants with you. So over the next 5 days, he burns, tortures, rapes, beats, does whatever he wants to with you. And at the table, the girl playing the sorceress just goes pale as a sheet. Like, immediately we know a line has been crossed with this girl. What we didn't know until later was that, well, let's just call her Amanda to change the names of the innocent. What we didn't know was that Amanda was a rape survivor in real life. So her character went to hell and was basically just raped over and over and over by this archdemon and chained to a rock. And then any demon that came across her for the next 4 days, she was just their plaything to be filleted alive and tortured and burned and raped hundreds of times. She came out at the end of all this like a burnt piece of chewing gum, missing most of her hair, bleeding from all ends. And by the time the 5th day in hell dawned and the demon was quite finished raping and beating her, because it was in the contract and she couldn't leave without the key, he took her, just pretty much like she thought, to a small stone building that demons could not approach without the presence of a human. And he cut her palm and he cut his palm, and they both touched the double doors and they swung open. And sure enough, sitting on that little pedestal like something out of Legend of Zelda was this obsidian key. And he grabs it in his giant fist and he takes her by the shoulder and steers her back. And he goes, you're basically his bitch for the remainder of whatever goes on. Like, just to save time, he went there on the dawn of the 5th day, and he spends the next, 18 hours, whatever it might be, just playing with you until he basically shoves the obsidian key into your body and then shoves you back out the hellmouth from whence you came, and you just crash onto the floor, burned. Like I said, hair missing, skin missing in certain places. You are steaming with heat. And the DM looks over and goes, that was hell for you. That was everything. Again, just, I can barely sit here and describe it to you. It was just awful. Just this never-ending tirade of awful over a course of 5 days to get this key. And the girl in real life, Amanda, just kind of stands up slowly, and I can see like she's shaking, like she has been thoroughly triggered at this point. And she reaches and just slaps the ever-loving shit out of our DM. Like, Robert's got a throbbing red hand mark on his face. And she gets her coat and she gets her shoes and she leaves. And we didn't see Amanda for the rest of this campaign. She left. She would not be part of this group. She would not talk to Robert. She would not talk to me. Our monk had to go find her and like talk to her and calm her down. And like, she was just shaking like a leaf the whole time. We had no idea that it was going to affect her that badly, that she had been raped in real life, that this was going to rip open old wounds, that like Robert really laid it on really thick. I mean, she went to hell. So I kind of understand the implication that he was trying to make it sound as bad as humanly possible. But Jesus Christ, Rob, I mean, looking back on this, you could have just done like a fade to black. But no, he got really explicit about like the number of demons that had raped her, the color of the skin as it had been pulled off her body. Just like, he went into so much horrible, torturous detail. And she did. She laid him out, almost knocked him out of his chair, slapping him over the face, and then took off running. Like, it was 10:30 at night. She took off. And that campaign stopped for a number of weeks. Like I said, we could not get Amanda back after that. She refused to return and play D&D with any of the people present. Not with Rob, not with me, not with our monk or our fighter. She pretty much just like, no. If another campaign came up at a later date, she would not join us. She didn't talk to me for almost 2 weeks, and I had nothing to do with it. Like, I didn't know the girl until this campaign started. So I was not prepared for the shitstorm that popped up because of this. So that game ground to a halt for a number of weeks, and it was eventually continued, but I am exhausted after having had to describe that nastiness to you. So we will just say that our sorceress returned with the obsidian key, and we'll have to pick it up next time. So again, please be respectful in the comments. I will be watching. Put on your big boy pants, all that good stuff. This was not an easy story to tell. So please be respectful. And I'll see you guys on the next D&D stories. Keep gaming.
Hey guys, thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like button for me. If you want to keep up with channel updates, check me out on Facebook. And if you're feeling especially generous, be sure to visit my Patreon. Keep gaming!